The wind tugged at Christina Lewis's jacket as she stepped out through the tall, gray gates of the correctional facility. Her hands trembled around a worn-out duffel bag, the only thing she owned now. For the first time in years, there was no shouting, no steel doors slamming behind her. Just the wide, quiet world, and the terrifying question of where she belonged. "Lewis, you're clear," called the guard from behind. Christina didn't turn around. Freedom was supposed to taste sweet. Instead, it burned in her throat. At one time, she had been Dr. Christina Lewis, a respected surgeon in Atlanta, known for her steady hands and calm voice in the operating room. Her patients trusted her. Her colleagues admired her. But all it took was one night, one mistake, and one man's cowardice to destroy everything. 5 years ago, a new department head had joined the hospital. Dr. Cameron Ellis, once a star surgeon, now more politician than physician. He wanted to impress a young nurse, so he insisted on performing a delicate operation himself, even though his hands shook. When his scalpel slipped, an artery tore open. The patient bled out before help arrived. To protect his reputation, the hospital blamed Christina. "Take the fall quietly," they said. "You'll get maybe 2 years." But the judge made it 8. 8 years in a state prison for a crime she didn't commit. Her husband left during the trial. He filed for divorce, told her not to ruin his name, and took their little boy, Marcus Jr., with him. Christina stopped writing letters after the first year. He never answered. She told herself she'd learn to stop hoping. But she never did. In prison, Christina learned 2 kinds of silence. The dangerous one that came before a fight, and the one that came from people who had lost faith in mercy. The only reason she survived was a woman named Lucille, the toughest inmate in the block. Lucille used to call her Doc, and made sure no one laid a hand on her. "Stick with me, Doc," she said. "You'll get through this hell." And somehow, she did. One freezing winter, a guard's daughter went into labor during a snowstorm. The ambulance couldn't make it through the ice. The warden came running to the medical ward, desperate. Christina delivered that baby herself. No tools, no help, just skill and faith. The child lived. The story spread. From that day, the staff treated her differently. Even the warden's daughter, a kind woman named Ingrid, visited often, bringing her small gifts and hope. Years passed, and now, finally, Christina was free. The warden met her by the gate, his voice low and almost kind. "You sure you don't want to stay? I could get you a job here, good benefits, early retirement." Christina smiled sadly. "No more bars, warden. I've seen enough metal for one lifetime." He pressed a white envelope into her hand. "From my daughter. She said it might help." Inside were a few $100s. Enough to eat, maybe to sleep somewhere safe for a while. Christina whispered, "Tell her thank you," and walked away before he could see her tears. The bus ride into Atlanta felt unreal. The city glittered in the distance. Cars, noise, life. Everything she'd lost. She found a small room in a worn-out boarding house owned by Miss Betty, a sharp-tongued woman with bright orange hair and a lavender perfume strong enough to fill the whole hallway. "No men, no drama, and rent's due on the 1st of every month," Miss Betty warned. Christina nodded. "That's fine. I just need a quiet place." The room was tiny. 1 bed, 1 table, a window facing a brick wall. But it was hers. For the first time in years, she locked the door from the inside and sat down on the edge of the bed, just breathing. That night, she woke up to loud banging. Someone was kicking the door. "Zena, open up!" a man's drunk voice shouted. Christina froze. He kicked again. "You in there with someone?" She grabbed the kitchen knife Miss Betty had left for protection and yanked the door open. A heavy man with glassy eyes stood there, smelling of whiskey. "You ain't Zena," he muttered. "Maybe I'll stay anyway." "Step back," Christina said coldly, raising the knife. "I just got out of prison. You think I care about another charge?" The man blinked, hesitated, then stumbled away, mumbling, "Crazy prison woman." She slammed the door and leaned against it, shaking. By morning, everyone in the boarding house knew not to mess with her. It wasn't respect, but it was safety. That afternoon, she bought a cheap flip phone, a prepaid card, and went to the police station to check in as a parolee. The officer barely looked at her, just stamped her papers and said, "Don't cause trouble." For the next few days, she searched for work. No hospital wanted to hire a former inmate. The medical board had suspended her license indefinitely. "Try working as a home health aide," one man suggested. "They don't check records too hard." Christina scrolled through ads on her cracked phone until one caught her eye. Live-in caregiver needed. Elderly male, partial paralysis, rural area, good pay. She called the number. A woman's smooth, confident voice answered. "This is Althea Monroe. I need someone immediately." That name alone sounded rich. Silk scarves, big houses, the kind of people who never saw women like Christina unless they were cleaning their floors. "I can start tonight," Christina said quietly. By sunset, a black SUV picked her up outside Miss Betty's place. The driver said nothing as they left the city and rolled down long country roads lined with Spanish moss and silent oaks. When they stopped, Christina saw a grand, lonely mansion surrounded by fields and fading light. Her new life, or maybe her new trial, was waiting inside. The mansion stood on the edge of a small southern town, far from everything that looked alive. The sky hung low and golden, the air heavy with the scent of magnolia and something else. Something like silence too deep to be safe. Christina followed the driver up the wide porch steps. The front door opened before she could knock. A woman appeared, tall, elegant, wrapped in wealth like a second skin. "Mrs. Monroe?" Christina asked. The woman smiled without warmth. "Dr. Lewis, is it? Or should I say, Miss Lewis now?" Her tone was smooth, almost pleasant, but there was an edge sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm Althea Monroe," she said, extending a manicured hand heavy with diamonds. "You'll be taking care of my husband." Christina nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Althea's eyes scanned her from head to toe. Her simple clothes, the small scar near her wrist, the faint tremor in her voice. "Follow me." Inside, the house was spotless but cold, the kind of clean that comes from fear, not comfort. The scent of bleach clung to everything. On the wall hung portraits of ancestors, proud faces staring down as if guarding the place from change. They stopped before a large room with wide windows and drawn curtains. A man sat by the window in a wheelchair, his back straight, his gaze fixed outside at the fading light. "Russell," Althea said, her voice suddenly honey-sweet. "This is Christina Lewis, your new caregiver." The man turned slowly. His skin was deep bronze, his eyes tired but sharp, carrying a quiet strength that even illness hadn't erased. He looked at Christina for a long moment before speaking. "You used to be a doctor," he said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "I was." He nodded once. "Then you know what dying looks like." Althea sighed dramatically. "My husband's been through a lot. He believes in miracles. I don't." Then, turning to Christina, she added in a whisper, "He needs help eating, moving, bathing, all the usual things. You'll sleep in the guest room down the hall. And please, don't give him false hope." Her heels clicked away before Christina could reply. Russell looked back at the window. "Don't mind her. She likes control, always did." Christina knelt slightly beside him. "Do you want to try some dinner?" He chuckled dryly. "I don't eat much. My body's given up. The doctor said nothing can be done." "Doctors are wrong sometimes," Christina said softly. "I've seen men walk again when no one believed they would." He looked at her then. Really looked. For a second, she thought she saw something flicker behind his eyes, a spark buried under layers of defeat. That night, after settling him in bed, Christina sat awake in her small room, listening to the strange quiet of the house. Every few minutes, she heard faint footsteps somewhere above, or maybe below. Old houses breathe, she told herself. But this one felt like it was watching. Over the next few days, she learned the rhythm of the place. Russell was polite but distant, spending hours staring through the window at the overgrown garden. Althea came and went, always dressed like she had somewhere more important to be. Christina focused on her work, meals, therapy, medication. But the more she looked at his prescription bottles, the more uneasy she felt. The doses were off. The combination was risky. One evening she finally said, "These medicines, they don't match your condition. Who prescribed them?" "My wife's doctor," Russell replied. "Said they'd keep me stable." "Stable," she repeated quietly. "Or quiet." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe both." The following afternoon, she called Althea. "Mrs. Monroe, I'd like to discuss your husband's treatment plan. I think he needs—" "Stop right there," Althea interrupted, her tone ice-cold. "I don't pay you to think. Just do your job." "I'm only trying to—" "You'll do what I say," Althea snapped. "No more talk about new doctors, or you'll be out by morning." The line went dead. Christina stared at the phone, her pulse racing. She'd seen that look in people's eyes before, the kind that hides guilt behind authority. Something about Althea's voice made her stomach twist. That night, Russell asked quietly, "Did you talk to her?" "Yes." "She never liked me weak," he said. "Said a man like me was supposed to die standing." Christina didn't answer. Instead, she opened a worn copy of The Three Musketeers she'd found on the shelf. "Want me to read?" He shrugged. "If it'll pass the time." She began softly, her voice filling the still room. When she reached the part where D'Artagnan stood up to the powerful, Russell actually smiled. The sound, faint, rough, but real, made her chest ache. "You see?" she said. "Not everything is lost." He looked away, whispering, "Maybe not." Days passed. The air in the house grew heavier, like a storm that wouldn't break. Althea returned less often, but when she did, her perfume lingered long after she was gone, sharp and suffocating. Russell grew stronger in small ways. He started moving his fingers, then his arms. Christina encouraged every effort. But the more life returned to him, the colder Althea became. She started watching Christina with eyes that no longer hid what they wanted. Control. One afternoon, Russell said quietly, "You ever get the feeling someone wants you gone?" Christina met his gaze. Every single day. That was the moment they stopped being just patient and nurse. They became two souls cornered by the same enemy. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains, warming the cold edges of the room. Christina sat by the window, watching Russell sleep. His breathing was steady, peaceful. The first sign that something inside him wanted to live again. She had seen that look before in her patients long ago, the moment when a body decides it isn't ready to die. It gave her hope, though she didn't dare say it out loud. When he finally woke, he said quietly, "You've been here all night." Christina smiled. "I couldn't sleep. Too many ghosts in this house." He chuckled, dry but genuine. "You really believe in ghosts?" She looked away. "I believe in what people leave behind." Later that day, while cleaning the kitchen, she noticed a small brown bottle near the sink. The label was half peeled off, but she could make out a word she knew too well. Digoxin. Her heart froze. That drug, given in the wrong dose, could stop a heart in seconds. She placed it back exactly where she found it. If she confronted Althea now, she'd lose her job. Or worse. That evening, she watched Russell swallow his pills, and for the first time, she hesitated. He noticed. "Something wrong?" he asked. "Just tired," she lied. "Long day." After he fell asleep, Christina sat at the kitchen table under the faint hum of the refrigerator, staring at the medicine bottles. The labels, the handwriting. They didn't match. Someone had switched them. Her fingers shook as she whispered, "Lord, what have they been giving you?" The next morning, she called an old friend, a lab technician named Connor, one of the few people who still answered her calls. "Connor, I need you to test something. Quietly." "You back in trouble again, Doc?" he asked. "Just help me," she said. "Please." She wrapped the pills in a napkin and sent them with a delivery driver headed into town. All day, she waited. When the call finally came that night, Connor's voice was tight. "Christina, don't let him take another one. Those capsules are loaded with enough cardiac stimulant to kill an elephant. Someone wants that man gone." Christina closed her eyes. It wasn't paranoia. It was murder. She spent the night pacing, thinking of ways to protect Russell without exposing herself. Her record, her past, no one would believe her over a wealthy woman like Althea Monroe. At dawn, Russell called out weakly. She rushed to his side. "You okay?" He shook his head. Felt dizzy, heart's racing. She checked his pulse, fast, irregular. Her voice trembled. "We're stopping those pills right now." He didn't argue. For once, he simply trusted her. Over the next few days, she replaced the poisoned medicine with harmless vitamins, keeping the real capsules hidden in a locked drawer. Russell's color returned. His breathing steadied. Althea noticed. "You've done something," she said one afternoon, her voice sharp as broken glass. "My husband looks different." "I changed nothing," Christina answered evenly. Althea stepped closer. "Don't lie to me. I can smell lies." Christina met her gaze without flinching. "Then you must smell your own first." Althea froze for a heartbeat, then smiled. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. How bold. Maybe too bold. That night, when Christina came to check on Russell, she found him awake, staring at the ceiling. "She knows," he whispered. "I know," Christina said softly, "but she can't prove a thing." "She won't need proof," he murmured. "People like her don't ask permission. They just erase what bothers them." Christina sat beside him. "Then we stay 2 steps ahead," she said, "and we keep everything documented. Every word, every threat." He nodded slowly. "You sound like someone who's been through hell." She smiled faintly. "I have. And I learned to stop waiting for miracles." The days that followed were filled with tension. Christina began keeping a small recorder in her pocket, capturing every conversation, every whisper that could later become evidence. Althea pretended not to notice, but Christina could feel her eyes, always watching. Then, one evening, while Christina was cooking soup, the family dog began barking wildly at the door. When she opened it, she saw no one, just an envelope lying on the porch. Inside was a single note, printed on plain paper. "Be careful what you uncover. The dead don't keep secrets." Her hands shook. Whoever sent it knew. That night, she checked every lock, every window. When she finally lay down, sleep wouldn't come. The house was too still, too expectant. Sometime after midnight, she heard soft footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside her door. She held her breath, gripping the small knife she kept under the pillow. After a long silence, the steps moved away. But she knew. This was only the beginning. The next morning, she found a new bottle of pills on the counter, labeled in Althea's elegant handwriting, "For Mr. Monroe, take twice daily." Christina opened it and saw the faintest shimmer of white dust clinging to the capsules. Someone was still trying to finish what they started. And this time, they weren't afraid to be caught. The morning came gray and heavy, the kind of sky that promised rain but never delivered. Christina stood by the sink, staring at the new bottle of pills. She didn't touch them. She simply whispered, You really don't know when to stop, do you, Althea? She took a single capsule, slipped it into a small envelope, and tucked it inside her jacket. That day, while Russell rested, she drove into town using the old pickup the gardener sometimes left behind. Every turn of the road felt like a risk, like someone might be watching. She stopped at a small medical lab on the edge of the city. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and tired coffee. A man with kind eyes looked up from his desk. "Christina Lewis," he said softly. "I thought I'd never see you again." "Hello, Connor," she said. "I need another favor." He frowned. "You already asked for one. That almost got me fired." "This one's worse," she said quietly. "And it's about murder." That got his attention. He took the envelope, opened it carefully, and sighed. "I'll test it tonight. But if I find what I think I'll find, you need to go to the police." "Not yet," she said. "I can't walk in there with a record and no proof." Connor shook his head. "You always were the stubborn one." When she returned to the Monroe estate, the air felt thicker. The sky was bruised purple, thunder rumbling in the distance. Russell was by the window, watching the storm build. "You went somewhere," he said. "Yes," she replied. "Don't ask where." He smiled faintly. "I trust you. More than I trust my own wife." Those words hit her deeper than she expected. Trust. It had been years since anyone said that to her. They ate dinner in silence, the sound of rain tapping on the roof. When she helped him to bed, he caught her wrist. "Christina," he said softly, "if something happens to me, promise you'll tell the truth." She met his eyes. "Nothing's gonna happen to you. Not while I'm here." That night, lightning flashed through the curtains, and she dreamed of fire, of the hospital room, the patient who never woke, and her own hands shaking under bright lights. When she woke, her cheeks were wet. The next day, Connor called. His voice was low, urgent. "Christina, it's poison. Not just strong medicine, actual poison. The capsules contain a compound that mimics heart failure. Whoever made this knew what they were doing." Her knees went weak. "Then it's true," she whispered. "She's been trying to kill him." "Go to the police," he insisted. "Now." "Not yet. I need her to show her hand. When she slips, I'll have everything." She hung up and turned toward the window. Outside, the dog barked, short, sharp, anxious. Something moved near the gate. A shadow, then another. Two men stood just beyond the fence, pretending to check the mailbox. Christina's heart pounded. They weren't from around here. She could tell by the way they scanned the house, not the street. That evening, she told Russell. "They're watching us," she said. He nodded grimly. "Marcus. That's her partner. He sends people to do what she won't dirty her hands with." "Then we record everything," Christina said. "Every visit, every word." She pulled a small recorder from her pocket. "I've already started." Over the next few days, she hid cameras around the house, one in the kitchen, one in the hallway, another near the medicine cabinet. She worked quietly, calmly, as if performing surgery again. Precise. Careful. No mistakes. Russell watched her move with quiet admiration. "You look different when you work," he said. "Like nothing can scare you." "Everything scares me," she answered softly. "That's why I move slow." One afternoon, Althea returned unexpectedly. Her perfume arrived before she did, that sharp, sweet scent that filled the air like warning smoke. "How's my husband?" she asked, her voice syrupy. "Improving," Christina said simply. Althea's smile thinned. "Improving? You make it sound like a good thing." "It is a good thing," Christina replied. "Don't get attached," Althea said, circling her slowly. "You're an employee, not a savior." "I'm a caregiver," Christina answered. "That's what I do." Althea leaned close. Her whisper was cold. Care too much, and you'll end up needing care yourself. Christina stood her ground. Is that a threat? Just a fact, Althea said, and walked away. That night, while checking the footage from her hidden camera, Christina saw something that turned her stomach. Althea had entered the kitchen, replaced one of the bottles on the counter, and wiped the surface with a cloth. Then she smiled toward the empty room, as if she knew someone was watching, and whispered, "Sleep tight, doctor." Christina's pulse raced. Now she had what she needed. Real proof. The next morning, she hid the recordings in a safe place, a locked box she buried beneath the old oak behind the house. Russell asked her what she was doing. "Saving our lives," she said. He looked at her for a long time. "You're not like anyone I've ever met." "Neither are you," she said quietly. For a moment, the air between them softened. Not fear, not duty. Something gentler, something dangerous in its own way. He reached for her hand. "Christina, if we survive this, I want to live for real, not just exist." She smiled. "Then we fight. Together." Outside, thunder rolled again. Inside, the war had already begun. The days began to melt into one another, long, heavy, and quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peace, but warning. Every sound in the house felt sharper now. Every creak in the hallway carried a threat. Christina could feel the tension thickening around them like fog. The cameras caught strange movements. A shadow near the door. The reflection of a car idling at night. A figure that disappeared the moment she turned the lights on. Russell noticed it too. "She's planning something," he said. Christina nodded. "And she's getting desperate." That evening, she made soup for them both. When she carried his tray into the room, Russell was sitting by the window, staring into the dark. "Smells good," he said quietly. Christina smiled. "Don't flatter me. It's just canned chicken soup and hope." He chuckled. "Hope's the best seasoning there is." But when she poured him a glass of water, he frowned. "Smells strange," he murmured. She sniffed the glass. Nothing. Still, something inside her twisted. "Don't drink it," she said sharply. He looked confused. "What's wrong?" Christina grabbed another glass, filled it straight from the kitchen tap, and placed them side by side. The difference was subtle. One glass was perfectly clear, the other slightly cloudy under the light. She poured a few drops from the suspicious one onto a paper towel. The spot turned pale yellow. Her stomach dropped. "Someone tampered with the water," she whispered. Russell's jaw tightened. "She's not even hiding it anymore." Christina exhaled slowly. "Then neither will we." That night, she sent another sample to Connor with a note. "For the record, keep it safe." Then she sat by Russell's bed until he drifted to sleep. Outside, rain whispered against the windows. She felt the loneliness of the world pressing on her chest, the same loneliness that had followed her out of prison. Only now, there was someone beside her who understood it. When she reached to adjust his blanket, his hand caught hers. "You don't have to stay," he murmured, half asleep. "I know," she said softly, "but I want to." For a long moment, neither moved. His fingers were warm around hers, and for the first time since she left prison, she didn't feel like a ghost. The next morning, a black sedan appeared near the property. It didn't come inside the gate, just waited, engine running. Christina watched from the porch until it finally rolled away. An hour later, she found a small dead bird nailed to the wooden fence, a note pinned beneath its wing. "Leave while you still can." Her hands shook as she tore it down. Russell saw the look on her face and knew without asking. "They're trying to break you," he said. "I've already been broken," she replied. "Now I'm just dangerous." That evening, she confronted Althea directly for the first time. The woman stood by the fireplace, sipping wine as if she owned every breath in the room. "You've gone too far," Christina said. Althea laughed softly. "Too far? My dear, I haven't even started. Those pills, the water, the threats, I know everything." "Then prove it," Althea said calmly, setting her glass down. "You think the police will believe a convict over me? I have lawyers, friends, reputation. You have… what? A record and a dead career?" Christina's voice trembled, but not from fear. "I have truth. And sometimes, that's all it takes." Althea smiled. "You talk like a woman who still believes in justice. Let me teach you something, sweetheart. Justice belongs to the rich." She turned and walked away, leaving behind the faint scent of perfume and cruelty. That night, Christina couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the storm gather over the fields. Thunder rolled in the distance. Somewhere in that darkness, Althea's car lights flashed once and vanished. Later, when Christina finally drifted into uneasy sleep, she dreamed of her son. Marcus Jr. stood at the end of a hospital hallway, reaching out his hand. "Come home, Mama," he said. When she reached for him, he faded into smoke. She woke with tears on her cheeks. In the morning, Russell's condition improved again. He could move his legs slightly now, the muscles trembling but alive. Christina almost cried when she saw it. "You see?" she whispered. "You're fighting your way back." He smiled weakly. "Maybe it's you I'm fighting for." The words hung between them like a secret neither dared to name. By sunset, the house was silent again. Too silent. Then came a faint click, a sound from the kitchen. Christina rose, knife in hand, and walked toward the noise. The door to the pantry was slightly open. When she pushed it, a gust of cold air rushed out. Nothing inside, only shadows. But when she turned around, she saw it. The gas stove was on, flame low, hissing softly. Someone had left it open. She raced to shut it off, coughing from the fumes. The window glass trembled under her hand. "Not tonight," she whispered. "You won't get us tonight." Upstairs, Russell called her name, panic in his voice. She ran to him. "What happened?" he asked. "Gas leak," she said, catching her breath. "Someone tried to set it up while we slept." He looked at her, eyes wide. "Then it's time." "For what?" "For us to stop surviving," he said slowly, "and start fighting back." Christina nodded. For the first time, she saw something fierce in his eyes, not fear, but fire. And in that moment, she knew. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The wind howled through the trees that night, bending the branches until they scratched the windows like angry fingers. The old house creaked and sighed, as if it, too, knew something terrible was about to happen. Christina didn't sleep. Neither did Russell. They sat together in the dim light of a single lamp, listening to the storm move closer. "I can't shake the feeling," he said quietly. "Something's coming." Christina nodded. "Then let it come." "We're ready." On the table beside them lay the recordings, the lab results, the printed photos from the hidden cameras, everything they had collected. Proof. Enough to destroy Althea and her partner Marcus. But proof meant nothing if they didn't live long enough to show it. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a strange calm. Too calm. Christina walked outside to feed the dog and froze. The gate stood open. Footprints marked the damp earth. 2 sets, heading toward the house. She turned slowly toward the porch and saw the front door slightly ajar. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Inside, the living room looked untouched. Too untouched. It was the stillness that screamed danger. "Russell!" she called. "I'm here." His voice came from the hallway. He was in his wheelchair, pale but steady. Then they both smelled it. A faint trace of gasoline. Christina's eyes darted toward the floor. A thin shimmer spread along the wooden boards, leading toward the kitchen. "Oh, Lord," she whispered. "They're going to burn us out." Russell wheeled toward her. "We have to get out." Before she could answer, glass shattered. A bottle flew through the window, fire bursting across the rug. The flames leapt fast, hungry, wild. Christina grabbed a blanket, smothered the edge, coughing through the smoke. "Move!" she shouted, pushing Russell toward the back door. But the doorway was blocked. The old wooden beam had fallen from the ceiling, trapping them inside. The dog barked frantically, pulling at the curtain near the window. "Good boy," she gasped. "Show me." She ripped the curtain down, revealing a small side window near the pantry, just wide enough for Russell's chair to squeeze through. Her lungs burned. The room roared with fire. "Go first," he coughed. "Not a chance," she said, voice breaking. "You go." She wrapped a wet towel around his face, grabbed the handles of his chair, and pushed with all the strength she had left. The window shattered, glass slicing her arms. But she didn't stop. She shoved him through the opening, then climbed out herself, falling onto the wet grass outside. They lay there, coughing, shaking, watching the house blaze. The night glowed orange, the flames devouring the walls, the windows, everything. Then, through the smoke, Christina saw them. Two silhouettes at the far end of the yard. Althea and Marcus. Standing side by side, their faces lit by the fire. Russell followed her gaze. "You see them too?" he whispered. "Yes," she said. "And so do the neighbors." The sirens came a few minutes later. Fire trucks, police, flashing red and blue lights cutting through the smoke. Neighbors gathered at the fence, whispering, pointing. Althea and Marcus tried to slip away, but one of the officers stopped them. Christina's voice cracked as she spoke. "That's them. They tried to kill us." The officer frowned. "Do you have proof?" She held out the charred flash drive from her pocket, melted around the edges but still intact. "I do," she said. "And if you need more, talk to the people who saw them watching from the road." Russell nodded weakly. "They were here. I saw it with my own eyes." Althea's mask finally cracked. Her voice turned wild. "He's lying. They're both lying. She's a criminal." Christina looked at her steadily. "And you're a murderer." The words hung in the smoky air, heavy and final. The police took them both away that night. Marcus tried to keep his calm, but when the officers found a can of gasoline in his car, it was over. For the first time in years, Christina felt her body relax, not from safety, but from survival. They were alive. Barely, but alive. Hours later, she and Russell sat on the steps of a neighbor's porch, wrapped in blankets. The fire was almost out. The house, gone. Russell turned to her. "We lost everything." Christina shook her head. "No. We kept the only thing that matters." He frowned. "What's that?" "The truth," she said softly. He smiled, the kind of tired, peaceful smile that comes only after long pain. Then, after a pause, he whispered, "You saved my life." She looked at him through the thin veil of dawn. "You saved mine first." They sat together in silence as the sun climbed over the ashes, turning smoke into light. The fire took almost the whole night to die. By morning, only the black skeleton of the house stood against the pale sky, smoke curling from what once had been walls filled with whispers and fear. Christina sat on the back of an ambulance, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her hands still trembled, the scent of smoke buried deep in her skin. She stared at the ruins and whispered, "Let it burn. Let all of it burn." Russell sat beside her, pale but alive. His voice was hoarse. "I never thought I'd see this day." She turned to him, her eyes soft. "The day the truth finally breathes?" He nodded slowly. "The day I stop pretending to be dead." They both fell silent as the officers moved through the debris, collecting evidence, taking photographs, asking questions. One of them, a young detective named Harris, approached Christina with a notebook. "Ma'am, we'll need a statement. We've already taken Miss Monroe and Mr. Grant into custody." Christina's voice was steady now. "You'll find the rest in the recordings. The lab results, too. Check with a man named Connor Davis. He can verify everything." The detective nodded, scribbling notes. "We already did. His report saved you, ma'am. Without it, this would have been much harder to prove." Christina smiled faintly. "He's a good man." Russell shifted in his chair, coughing slightly. Harris looked at him with concern. "We'll have you transferred to the hospital soon. You're lucky to be alive, sir." Russell glanced at Christina. Luck had nothing to do with it. That night, the hospital felt almost peaceful compared to the chaos they had survived. The white walls, the soft beeping of machines, all the sounds that once haunted Christina now felt like forgiveness. When the nurse left, Russell looked at her. "I owe you my life, Christina." She smiled gently. "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll live it fully." "I intend to," he said, "and I don't plan to do it alone." Her eyes met his, and for a brief, quiet moment, the world outside didn't exist. Days passed. The police uncovered everything: the false prescriptions, the payments to Marcus, the insurance policies Althea had taken out on her husband. Every lie, every secret, every poisoned drop came to light. The trial drew attention all over the state. "Southern heiress charged in attempted murder of husband," the headline said. Reporters tried to reach Christina for comment, but she refused. She had spoken enough for one lifetime. Instead, she focused on Russell's recovery. With therapy and persistence, he began to stand. The first time he managed to take a single step, Christina cried. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled. "No, we did." After weeks in the hospital, the doctors cleared him to leave. He didn't return to the ruins of the mansion. He sold the land and donated most of the money to a local medical clinic. "Let something good grow where evil once stood," he said. Christina moved into a small apartment in the city. Nothing fancy, just clean, bright, and her own. Every morning, she woke before dawn and stood by the window, watching the sunrise wash the world in gold. Then one morning, her phone rang. The voice on the other end was hesitant, young, familiar. "Mom?" Her breath caught. "Marcus?" There was silence. Then a small, broken laugh. "Yeah, Dad told me everything. I saw the news. I'm sorry. I didn't know what they did to you." Tears blurred her vision. "It's okay, baby. You were just a child. I want to see you," he said. "If that's okay." Christina pressed the phone to her chest, closing her eyes. "It's more than okay. It's everything I've prayed for." They met a few days later at a small cafe downtown. When he walked in, tall and grown, wearing the same nervous smile she remembered from when he was a boy, her knees nearly gave out. He hugged her tight, whispering, "I missed you." And for the first time in years, she let herself cry without holding back. Russell joined them later, still walking carefully with a cane. He greeted Marcus warmly, his voice steady. "You have your mother's strength." The three of them sat together, sunlight spilling across the table, the smell of coffee and fresh bread filling the air. No luxury, no lies, just life, fragile and real. When they left the cafe, Christina turned to Russell. "What happens now?" He smiled softly. "Now, we start over." She looked at her son, then back at him, and whispered, "Maybe this time, the world will be kind." Russell reached for her hand. "And if it isn't, we'll make it kind ourselves." As they walked down the quiet street, the city humming softly around them, Christina realized something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace that comes from silence or safety, but the peace that comes from surviving every storm, and still choosing to love again. A full year passed before Christina realized she had stopped counting the days since freedom. Not because she forgot, but because she no longer needed to. Spring came soft and golden that year. The city trees were heavy with blossoms, and the air carried the sound of church bells and laughter. For the first time, the world didn't feel like a place she had to survive. It felt like a place she could belong. Christina walked through the bright corridors of the new Monroe Rehabilitation Center, the clinic Russell had built with the money from selling his family estate. The sign outside carried her name too: Lewis and Monroe Foundation for Healing and Hope. The rooms were filled with light, the smell of fresh paint, and the quiet rhythm of second chances. Young nurses greeted her with respect, not suspicion. Patients smiled when she passed. They called her Dr. Lewis again, a title she thought she'd buried forever. In one room, an older woman practiced walking with a brace. "Take it slow," Christina said gently. "Let your legs remember they still belong to you." The woman laughed through her tears. "You sound like someone who's been through it." Christina smiled. "Maybe I have." Later, she found Russell outside in the garden, leaning on his cane, sunlight catching the silver in his hair. He was stronger now, not the man who once waited to die, but the man who chose to live. "How's the morning, doctor?" he asked, teasing. "Peaceful," she said. "For once." He handed her a small white flower he'd picked from the garden. "For the woman who gave me back my breath," he said softly. She took it, her throat tight. "And for the man who taught me that broken things can still build something beautiful." They stood there in the warmth of the sun, surrounded by the quiet hum of life returning. The same house that once burned had given birth to this place, a home for healing, built from ashes. Every corner of it whispered a promise, that pain could become purpose, that loss could turn into light. That evening, Christina returned to her small apartment. Marcus was waiting for her, sitting on the couch, helping one of the clinic's volunteers with paperwork. He looked up, smiling. "Hey, Mom, dinner's ready." She laughed softly. "You cooked?" He grinned. "Don't sound so shocked. I can follow directions, mostly." They ate together, laughing, arguing about recipes, music, and life. When the dishes were done, he kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. Christina stood by the window long after he left, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. She thought of the prison gates, the mansion, the fire, all the places that had tried to kill her spirit. And she thought of every soul who hadn't made it out of their own darkness. She whispered into the quiet, "For them, I'll keep going." The next morning, she walked into the clinic just as the sun rose, painting the halls gold. Patients were waking, nurses moving gently through the rooms. In the distance, she heard Russell's laughter echo down the hall, strong, alive, real. She paused by the window, breathing in the scent of magnolia from the courtyard. Somewhere beyond the glass, life stretched wide and open, waiting. And for the first time since she was a girl, Christina Lewis didn't feel haunted. She felt whole. Because after everything, the lies, the prison, the fire, she had learned the truth. Freedom isn't the moment the doors open. It's the moment your heart decides to walk through.